I'm excited to bring you this information. And if folks have any technical issues or anything, please put them in the chat box and we'll do the best we can to resolve those. We are going to be going over the new core data dictionary, which was the final draft was sent to you all at the end of last week, I believe. And we wanted to give you a little time to go over, and then there was a summary document of the summary of changes. So this webinar will be going over the new elements and some of the existing elements, and is meant to be a forum where you can ask questions, and hopefully we can share information about the new elements and some of the existing elements and how those will merge together in core. So there's some exciting opportunities for providers and for county staff to look at outcomes and information in a new way, and hopefully be a little more automated. So hopefully you'll find it exciting as well. Elena, do you want to start us off?
Sure. All right. So these are the high-level objectives for today's meeting. First, we want to give you guys a little bit of context around core, so we have some time to go over background about what core is, and get everyone up to speed, because we know we've been talking about this for the better part of a year. And then we'll dive into kind of the focus of today's session, which is to share and discuss the upcoming data changes and data requirements as we move into core. So that's going to be the bulk of what we'll talk about today. And then we'll close out by providing more information about what to expect moving forward. So again, the bulk of the conversation today will be around data requirements and data changes. We know that in the move to core over the next couple of months, there'll be changes in the billing processes and things like that, but just know that that information is coming in the near future.
Just one moment, we're working on a quick technical difficulty here. Thank you for your patience. Give us 1 minute. Okay, we got it figured out. Thank you. And onward.
All right. So for context, what is CORE? So CORE is the Client Outcome Reporting Engine, and it's going to be a new way for select providers that receive funding through the Department of Community and Human Services to share their data about their clients with our department. So it extends beyond just the developmental disabilities and early childhood supports, or DDECS division, that you all are providers for. So CORE will be accepting client-level data from providers in a standard format, either Microsoft Excel or CSV files, and it'll ensure that information is complete so that we can better analyze information at both individual program levels and community levels. And it's also going to give providers and DCHS staff access to more robust reporting tools. So you'll automatically be able to see performance dashboards, and your data analyzed in real time, giving you access to the same information that program staff here within DCHS have about your specific program. So we're hoping for more transparency there with the data that'll lead to more fruitful conversations about the quality and impact of the programs that you're helping to support. CORE for DDECS adult services providers, so you all specifically, will also be used to submit client-level data and billing information. So it's replacing the existing billing and data collection system. So it is a bit different than it is for other DDECS providers. One thing that CORE is not is a case management system. So who's going to be using CORE? Most of the providers that are funded through the Best Starts for Kids levy, so BSK, the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services levy, called BSHSL, and the Developmental Disabilities and Early Childhood Supports Division, so DDECS, as we call ourselves, will be reporting data into CORE. And also about half of the providers funded through the MID Behavioral Health Sales Tax, or MID, and they'll all also be able to submit client level data into this new system. So again, as I mentioned before, DDEC's use of the system is a bit different than other programs that are reporting into the system. You probably already encountered that over the last couple of months of communications around CORE, that there's always an asterisk on everything, that things are different for us. So just keep that in mind with things. And so that kind of segues into when will the system go live? There's a few phases of CORE. The current phase has already launched. So the system's gone live, it's real, it exists. We're doing user acceptance testing currently with a handful of providers. But the way the system exists right now is built specifically for those other levies. So if you get funding from VSK or VSHSL or MID, and you report client level data as part of your funding for those programs, that system is live now, and people will begin reporting it within Q1. For the next phase, the DDECS phase, we're expecting that to launch in spring, sort of tentatively saying in April or May launch, so that the first time folks would be reporting into CORE would be in May for April billing. Again, all of that is subject to change. We're really hoping to finalize the deadline for DDECS in the next few weeks. So take that timeline with a grain of salt for now, but that's what we're really aiming for. All right, so again, while there'll be some changes about the billing and data collection process for CORE, today we're really going to spend more time jumping into specific data changes that you can expect. And if you in general want more information about CORE or are feeling a little bit lost in all of this, please make sure that you're on our listserv. You can email core@kingcounty.gov to get more information. Make sure that you're signed up for email listserv. You can submit questions to us that way. So that's a great resource as well. So I'll talk a bit about the current state of the billing process and data submission process now. So we expect things to stay the same through at least March of 2020. So nothing about how you're submitting your data, your billing data will be changing until CORE goes live. So we're telling you this information now as a heads up, but keep reporting your billing data using the existing billing sheets until further notice. So current state for submitting billing and performance data, your billing spreadsheets look something like this. This is a school to work example. And you're reporting billing data and performance data together on an Excel sheet. Spreadsheets are generated and submitted through the billing portal. Some of the issues with the current state is authorization data is not super timely. Data validation doesn't always work, so we have a lot of billing errors, and data isn't shared back with you in meaningful ways. But again, this will continue until the launch of CORE. So future state, sometime in spring 2020, again, our goal is April or May, when phase 2 of CORE goes live, things will look quite a bit different. So CORE will allow us to have secure transfer of data. We'll have some updated data elements, and again, this is what we're talking about today. So data elements will be streamlined across programs. This means, among other things, less individual spreadsheets to fill out. There'll be some new data elements, specifically around like preferred hours or preferred job types, for example. And some data elements that you see on your current billing sheets will be going away because there'll be calculations that the system is going to start generating instead. CORE will also have dashboard and reporting features. So again, this will give providers the ability to view performance measure information in real time and access canned reports from the system so that you can see what DDECS program staff see about your specific clients. And so we're really excited about that feature. Just note that it's something that may not quite be ready when we first launch CORE. And then there'll also be improved validation to reduce billing errors within the system. So this is just a snapshot of what a reporting spreadsheet in CORE would look like. Obviously, vastly different than the way the billing sheets look now. In CORE, you'll also have demographic data that we're going to be pulling in from DSHS DDA's database and pre-populating into the first several columns of your reporting spreadsheets. So that's not data that you'll have to collect and report to us at this time. We'll be collecting it and reporting it to you on your reporting spreadsheets. And then the billing spreadsheets, as you can see here, will be visually quite different. So they're not going to be visually formatted in the same way that they are now. They won't include formulas kind of built into the system to generate calculations. Instead, the system will be calculating things like, you know, total funding based on hours you're submitting, things like that. We are offering and have offered Excel trainings to kind of show you how you can make the spreadsheets more reader friendly, how you can freeze pane so that you can scroll across a really wide spreadsheet, things like that. And a few other things to note about core that I think is going to be helpful as we jump into kind of why there's specific data changes that we're expecting. So the way that core is set up, it requires that all data for a client in a program be on a single spreadsheet. So not multiple sheets within Excel, just one spreadsheet, all the data about that client. So that means that we'll have to collect all the billing data and client employment outcome data in the same sheet. So right now, for example, in individual employment, you're collecting billing data in one sheet, and then there's an employment outcome sheet that's separate, and you're putting all the jobs data there. In core, all the jobs data for that client, for those clients, will have to be on the same sheet as our billing data. So that means the spreadsheets are going to be pretty wide because it's a lot of data to fit on just one sheet. The other reason that the spreadsheets are going to be pretty wide is because core also requires that all of the data for a particular client be contained in a single row. So say you have Sung on a particular line, all of his billing data, all of his demographic data, all of his employment data has to be in the same row. So that's just something to keep in mind and informed how we had to set up some of the data elements specifically around jobs. Because a client can have more than one job, we had to create a set of job data elements for up to 3 jobs in the system. So you'll see that too. Given that, we did try to structure kind of how the data are, where they show up in the spreadsheet so that the data that's most likely to change is first. We'll be sharing what these structured spreadsheets are for core for your particular program sometime next month. So after this webinar, we're going to be working with our vendor to finalize what all the data elements are for DDECS, and then we'll be able to create the spreadsheets. Again, this is a snapshot that you're seeing on your screen here, which is just showing the first few columns. But sometime in February, we'll be sending you what the final reporting spreadsheet would look like so that you can start taking a look at your system and seeing how you could build reports to reflect that, and you'll really get a chance to dive a little bit deeper into that. So that will be coming in February. All right. So with all of that context, we're going to jump into the program-specific changes. And again, there's some changes that'll be mentioned. We're going to go through program by program. Changes that'll be mentioned that'll affect particularly school to work, that are also going to impact individual employment. So you may see us or hear us repeating now and then. So yeah, I'll jump to Emily now to talk about school to work.
Good afternoon, everybody. So with school to work, there are some new reporting elements that that you'll have to fill out. We now have performance measures, and those are related to preferred job type and preferred hours. So we're going to need data that underlies those performance measures. And we're also moving towards collecting data, like Elena said, for each active job. And so that's going to help us gain a better understanding of wage growth and change in hours per job over time. And it's also going to provide an accurate analysis or an opportunity for us to analyze regional wage estimates. We're going to talk about that more in a few slides. But what it means for providers is that you are going to be needing to report on the preferred job type, and preferred hours in core, and then each active active job the client has, that particular job type, and then the client hours paid. Yeah, next slide. Okay. And so one of the other changes is that currently in School to Work, providers are just reporting on the total hours served in a month. They're not broken out by phase, but with core School to Work providers now are going to report hours by phase, phases 1 through 3 only for School to Work. So I believe there's 4 phases in IE, so it's just 3 phases for School to Work. And then what core is going to do is sum up those provider hours across the phases to calculate the total staff hours that were provided. Okay, and for this one, with client hours paid and client wages, let's see, we're looking at, oh, hold on, I lost my place, excuse me guys. Oh, okay. Sorry. My slides got messed up on my computer. Okay, so we're moving towards collecting data for each active job a client has, which is going to help us understand, like I said, wage growth and change in hours per job over time, and also help us look regionally, analyzing what wage estimates are going to be in different regions of the county. And the hope is really that providers are already collecting the hours worked and the hourly wage for each job, and they roll it up to report to the county. And with the new change, it would mean that you no longer have to aggregate that data before submitting it to us, which we are hoping will be helpful since the system will do that for you. And then we're also requesting that you're reporting an hourly wage for each active job rather than having you calculate a gross wage. And so that's going to help us reduce hours and gross wage calculations as well. So if a client in School to Work actually has 2 jobs, which we don't have very often, but occasionally we do, you'd have job 1, you would report those hours for job 1. Let's say that one was at Safeway, and so how many hours was that client paid at Safeway, and what was Safeway's hourly wage? And then if they have another job, maybe they work at an office in the evening, and so they're going to report on that office job as job 2, hours that the client was paid, and then their hourly wage. So hopefully that makes sense. So some of the new employment outcome core data elements that you haven't seen before in School to Work are going to be employer city, employer zip code, dental insurance, medical insurance, paid leave and retirement benefits. So core requires all of that data in a particular row as well for the spreadsheet. So I know that Elena talked about this already. She made mention that that's going to mean that the spreadsheet's really, really long, but this is all information that we want School to Work providers to report on as well. And again, I would really recommend you take advantage of the Excel training, because learning how to freeze those panes is really going to help you as you go through the spreadsheets in your billing. And I know, like Elena also said is that they're working on making sure that the fields that change frequently show up kind of first in line, and so you're not scrolling all the way through to the end to make those data changes. The employer, to go back to the new data elements, the employer city and employer zip code. So all of these would be reported for each active job individually. But the employer city and the employer zip code, I wanted to point out, is that that's going to allow us to do a geographic of analysis of employers. So we can look at what areas of the county are we seeing a lot of jobs for students, and what areas we might not be having the same luck. One of the points is that we have, students that are employed by a certain employer but different chains throughout the county. So for example, for Mod Pizza, we might be able to see that over in East King County we've got lots of students employed by Mod, but we don't have anybody in South King County employed by Mod. So how could we maybe look at that differently and do some strategizing? And then to align with individual employment and DVR information, that is where the fringe benefit core data elements come in, the dental insurance, medical insurance, paid leave, and retirement. So that's all aligning with IE and DBR, so that school to work is more just in line with the programs that the students will then transition into when they start to actually access the adult services. So I'm done presenting on school to work, and now Sung is going to present. Thank you.
Hey, I think actually Susie is going to go here.
Sorry.
No problem.
That's all right. That's all right. and Sung and other team members, please jump in if I'm forgetting any pieces here.
Just give us a cue for the slide when you're ready for the next one.
Okay. So with individual employment, you're going to see preferred job and preferred hours being recorded. And these are new core data elements. Similar to school to work, we'll be collecting the data for the new performance measures, and we'll be looking at the % of clients working in their preferred job type and preferred hours. Now, many of you know that DDA is also collecting preferred hour information on their person-centered service plans. And I believe their look is overall, what's your long-term goal of what you would like to be working at any point in your career. What we're really looking for in our preferred hours is the shorter term goals that you guys are typically looking at for a plan year. What are the client's preferred hours that you're looking at attaining in that next plan year and the goals toward that? So those may be different numbers, and we've shared that with DDA. They may be the same number, but it will give us a place to reference back to that DDA data. DDA has shared with us that they're hoping to have that data viewable to counties in the next 6 months to a year. So at some point we should be able to query both sets of data and be able to share that with you. And Elena, correct me, but I believe we're reserving a place in core where we could reflect that back to providers when it's available, correct?
Yes, we are. Okay,
perfect. And I think we can move to the next slide. Sorry, my apologies. I got a little lost in my slides as well. So we'll also be collecting service termination data. So looking at the service termination date and the service termination reason, and it will be now tracked with other client level data and billing data on that spreadsheet that we're talking about. We can move to the next slide. And you all are very comfortable and you've done a lot of reporting of the provider hours by phase. So you're still going to be reporting those hours by phase 1 through 4. Core will then sum the provider hours across the phase to calculate the provider staff hours. So you'll no longer have to report that summed total of hours by the phase themselves. So those 4 phases, as you all know, are job preparation, job development, job coaching, and record keeping. So we can move to the next slide. So very similar to Emily and School to Work, what Emily presented, we're moving toward collecting data for each active job. And we've chatted with kind of a smaller group of you about this. And we want feedback if there's any concerns about this, but there are a lot of benefits to looking at individual jobs for folks. So currently, if somebody has multiple jobs, that's all being rolled together into an average wage, average hours. And as Emily said, we're not sure exactly where in the county that employer is. So gathering information on jobs separately around the hourly wage and hours paid, and then other employment outcomes by job will really enable us as a system to look at our employment outcomes across the county and also more accurately reflect the hours and wages that people are working if they're working multiple jobs. And we can move to the next slide. And again, kind of what I already spoke to, looking at employer city, employer zip code, and job loss reason. Those are all information that we'll use to have a better sense of the employer picture across the county and how things are working for folks. Just another reminder, the spreadsheets are going to be really wide. We will structure them so that the data is mostly likely to change monthly. The provider hours, client hours paid per job show up before the data that is less likely to change frequently. But again, going to the Excel classes if you need to learn how to freeze the panes and that kind of thing will probably be really helpful. So again, those are the newer data elements: the employer city, employer zip code, and job loss reason. And then moving along to group supported employment. So the next slide. So the changes here are very similar to IE individual employment. There's just a few notable differences. So GSE providers will continue to report site hours for clients. That won't change. The providers will be asked if a client received community hours during the month. And if that answer is yes, because some individuals are receiving group support employment and then also may receive either services toward a community job, or they may be working a community-based job, an individual employment job. If the answer is yes, the provider will be required to report those provider hours that support those steps by phase. So that's a little bit different than current reporting. But just like school to work and individual employment, we will collect individual data for each active job. So for group support employment, the data relating to job one will be obviously their job in that group supported employment setting. If they have a second job in the community or are transitioning to individual employment, that information will be collected in job two. So there'll be less data for the GSE employment outcomes, and the additional jobs will have very similar data elements to the ones in individual employment, capturing the employer name, the zip code, the city, that kind of thing. And I think, Simon, were you going to take the piece on community inclusion?
Yes. Thank you, Susie. This is Simon. Hello, everyone. So for community inclusion, the only changes would be the addition of service termination data, and then the same changes related to the provider hours by phase described for independent employment. And for right now, there should be some type of alert if you record more than 2 hours in phase 4 for record. And I know I've emailed back and forth sometimes with this current billing process, where just verifying that there isn't a mistake. And so that's all there to make it a little easier for everyone. So that's the only new thing. And this may change in the future as we work to establish performance measures for community inclusion. So for technical assistance, again, the only changes would be adding the service termination data, and then of course the same changes related to provider hours by phase described in IE. That's all I have.
All right, so what's next for CORE? So what can you expect moving forward? Again, as we said in the beginning, the timeline below is assuming an April or May launch, which is our goal, and we'll have more information and a confirmed timeline coming up in the first few weeks of February. So we'll be able to let you know for sure when you can expect all of this to be coming your way. But for now, billing process and data collection requirements will not change for January through at least March. And you all will receive a final CORE reporting spreadsheet. So remember that snapshot I showed you, the spreadsheet we keep talking about how wide it is. You'll receive a finalized one in CORE some point in February, again, once we finalize things with our vendor. And so at that time, you'll be able to see kind of the structure of what the reporting spreadsheet will look like, so that if you have a data system where you can pull reports out, so you're not manually entering the data into our spreadsheet, you can start working with your vendor or internal staff to develop those reporting features for when core goes live. And you can start attending core trainings probably in March or April, or it's depending on the launch. So you'll get trained in how to use core about a month before you actually have to start reporting into it. And keep a lookout also in our newsletters that go out from core@kingcounty.gov about additional resources in those Excel trainings. There's now videos and materials available on the core SharePoint site, and also linked in those newsletters. And assuming that the launch goes live in April for DDECS, you begin collecting data in the formats that we just described, in the reporting spreadsheet format that you will see in February, starting in April billing, and then you would submit for the first time in core in May for April billing. So we'll be able to confirm that very soon with you all. All right. Now we'll open it up for questions. But before I do that too, I just want to reiterate too, if you don't, if you're not on the core listserv, that's the email right there, core@kingcounty.gov, to get added to our listserv. And there's also a SharePoint site with old info on there too.
Can I make one correction? Hi, this is Carrie Flory. So that is the email that will come directly to me and others that man that or staff that inbox. The newsletters come from core@subscriptions.kingcounty.gov. I know it's annoying, I hate it, but it's the only way we can send all those newsletters to all you beautiful people. So slight difference there, but go ahead, that's the email. You can go ahead and send us any questions that you have there.
Thank you. So we did have one question in the chat box, and feel free to ask questions, everyone. But the question is, did you say that we would be reporting phase info for each job or as an aggregate?
Do you want me to jump in on that one, since I think that was from my part? And I apologize if I wasn't clear. You won't be reporting phase info for each job. The service provider information or the service hours that you're reporting in each phase will be the aggregate for the services you provided for the month. The only thing that will be reported by job is the client wages, hours, work hours, and then the employment outcome data. So the employer, city, zip code, and the employer name. So those things will be reported by job 1, job 2, job 3. But the actual service hours will be reported in an aggregate format.
Thank you very much, Susie. Do we have any other questions from people online? And if you come up with questions at a later time, you could email myself, Susie, Elena, or the core main email, and we'll get a response to you as quickly as possible.
This is Carrie again. Sorry, I'm jumping in here. So we had mentioned that the Microsoft Excel training, so that is available online now. If you have access to the Core for Providers SharePoint, where we're housing all the pre-launch materials, it's already there. The video and all the sample training materials, so you can practice along, are available there. If you don't have access to that, let me know. We have a Vimeo link as well, and then we'll also, we can send the manual materials out. The reason we don't send everything out is because that video is massive. So go ahead and email core@kingcounty.gov if you have any problems finding that, or if you just need some help locating materials.
Yeah, we got another question. If someone has more than 3 jobs, can we add a column, or how do we want them to report that?
So I can try to take that, and others please jump in as well. So we'll be working, first of all, we'll be working with you all to clean up some of the job data that we currently have in our system over the next couple of months. So before core launches, we'll reach out to each provider individually and give you basically the data that we have for each of your clients and what their jobs are, to make sure that we don't have jobs that are not actually active for that client anymore. If you already know that you have clients that are actually actively working more than 3 jobs, please, if you could email me and just let me know, like, ballpark how many. We'll bring it up on Tuesday too, because if it's a common issue, we may need to add a separate set of data elements. Core won't let you, like, if you add columns onto your spreadsheet and try to submit it, it won't let you submit. So if we have a lot of instances where people have more than 3 active jobs at one time, because we only want to capture data on their active jobs, then we might consider adding like a fourth set of all
But
of
if
the
it's very rare, then to contact you.
Yeah, just contact us
And we
we'll
can
figure
add
it out.
Okay, we have, will the community inclusion phases be the same in core as employment, or will the community inclusion phases be what they are now?
So they will have different, like if you look in the data dictionary, the detailed, I know it's a 63-page document that we sent you guys. In the community inclusion section there, it'll show you what the hours by phase are called for community inclusion. I think that we did name them the way that they're named now. So they don't have the same name except for phase 4 record keeping. I believe the phase 1 through 3 have a slightly different name than they do for individual employment.
Okay, any other questions? And if you, as we said before, this is not speak now or forever hold your peace. You can always email us. So we report a client in SGAP sheet now. How will that work in the future?
So I will say that our hope, and we are working with our vendor actually this week to confirm that this will be possible. Our hope is that you will be reporting all of your individual employment clients, regardless of their funding source, in the same spreadsheet. So whether they are a DDA funded client, a service gap client, King County IE, Furcrest IE client, they would all go on the same spreadsheet. So no more multiple sheets for IE. Same with school to work, that you wouldn't have one sheet for each model. It would just be one school to work model. The only thing that we're following up with our vendor on for IE specifically is that the authorization for those funding sources is different. So we're just confirming with them to make sure that we wouldn't have to split IE out into 2 spreadsheets. But if we do, it would only be 2. It wouldn't be the 4 that you have now. But our goal is to make sure that it's just one, and that the system itself will keep track of what the funding source for that client is. And you would see it on your spreadsheet, on your invoice. It would break it out by funding source. You'd be able to see which of your clients are service gap in that way.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. If we are adding clients, do we add to the bottom?
Yes. So with core, and we'll talk a lot more about this, these process changes in the coming months. But with core, you will just add any new clients to the bottom of the spreadsheet, and core is going to determine their authorization and basically put them into one of 4 buckets. So are they authorized and paid? Are they not showing up as authorized? Were they previously unauthorized, but now they are, so now we can pay them. So we'll go into all of that level of detail with you and kind of explain that process pretty soon. But for now, just know, yes, you will be adding any clients that don't show up on the list to the bottom of your spreadsheets.
Yeah, if you're expecting somebody to be authorized, so you add them this month, but they're not quite in AWA yet, and then next month the case manager enters them in AWA with the back date of this month, then that'll carry over and you'll get paid for the information you entered in the previous month when they get authorized.
Elena, would it be good to give a reminder, though, about we need, and I guess I can do it, but if folks want to jump in, we do need you all to report all the services that happened in that month, whether someone shows up on your spreadsheet or not, because we will not be able to do retro payments. And I know we've talked about that before, but I think it's such a significant change to our service system. We want to make sure we say it over and over again. So if anyone has questions about that, please let us know.
So we got a new question. For dual funded, for example, DVR and DDA, how will that be entered or reported?
So for IE, there's a data element. I'm blanking on the name. I think we kept the name the same way that it is on your reporting spreadsheet now. It's like the very last column of your billing sheet now. Funding source, yeah, something like that, where you say if it's KC DVR or DVR. So that data element will still be there for IE. So if you have, you'll still be able to say if it's just a King County client, King County DVR client, or DVR only for IE.
All right, hope that answered your question. And please keep the questions coming, and this won't be the last time we could have a chat about this. It's just like the beginning. As this rolls out, we'll have a lot of information and help you through any of the challenges or how to navigate the system, the new system.
And we have that provider meeting on Tuesday too, so if you think of more questions, please bring them to that meeting on Tuesday too.
Yeah, and we'll be touching base on core, and Elena will be there, and possibly Carrie to give an update. There's nothing new that you guys haven't heard on this webinar today, at least not at this point, but there we'll reiterate some of the information and timelines and that kind of thing.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in and lending us your time to share this information with you. And as always, you could email myself, Sung Cho, or Susie Stremmel, or Elena Romani, or the main core at kingcounty.gov. Email with any of your questions, and we will do our best to answer those for you. And we will see you at the provider meeting next Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.